Hello guys and welcome back to my sewing channel. Today I'm doing a really fun project because I am going to sew clothes for my Barbie doll. Actually, it's not a Barbie doll, it's a Sindy doll. I had a lot of different fashion dolls when I was young. I think this one was called Sindy. Not sure if they were also made by Mattel. If anyone has any input on this, please let me know. I want to sew cottage core outfit for her with like a corset bodice and a little frilly shirt and a skirt. And this is the first project I've ever done for a Barbie doll. For any doll, really. And I've watched a lot of channels on YouTube where they do a lot of these doll projects, and I've always been really fascinated by them. So I wanted to do one on my own. So I'm going to use a lot of leftover fabric for this. I think it's a nice way to actually use some of the fabric scraps that I have. I'm going to do, as I mentioned, this pattern right here, just scale it down basically by quite a lot, and for the rest I'm going to just sort of make it up a bit as I go. I have made a mock-up where I just sort of tested the pattern. So what I've done is basically to just use the Emma Breeze pattern and really zooming it in. I have taken her measurements as well and used those to draft a mock-up. So I tried this on. I made some changes in the angles, especially between the side front and the front panel. So I did a bit of testing. So what I'm going to do now is to finish this lining. Here I have the different parts. So I'm gonna make another one of these, and this one and this one, and then I'm going to base them together and we'll take it from there. So on these pattern pieces there is a 5mm seam allowance, so I'm taking that into account here. As you can see here, it's been added on top, and now I'm just going to cut these and we'll base them together and just see how it works. So first of all, now I am going to sew together the back and the side of the back and the fronts and side fronts, and then I will sew the sides together afterwards, and then I will try it on and measure out the straps. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and just sew over this basting seam, and then I will do the same on the other side. So I have now sewn together the front pieces. They're so small. The front pieces and the front side pieces, these two, and then I have the back pieces. Next I'm going to sew together the side seams on both sides, and after that I'm going to clip and press the seams, and I think maybe I'll do a small top stitch just to sort of secure this a bit more, because there is very little seam allowance here. So I'll probably do that after having clipped and pressed. So here we go. It doesn't exactly look very glamorous at this point, but I think it will be good. It will be very bulky because of the seams, but I'm just gonna double check the size here. Okay. I think that looks nice. I am going to clip the seams. I'm going to press it, top stitch it.
So I have just basted on this strap right here. It's a bit too wide, I can tell now. What's hard about working with such small pieces is that any sort of unraveling along the edges really takes away quite a lot of the seam allowance since there is so little. So I have to be careful not to have to unpick a lot of seams, because I feel like when I do that, a lot of the fabric is unraveled as well. So I'm gonna sew this on the sewing machine and just double check that the size is okay. I think I made it a bit too long at this point, but I did a test before and that was too short, so I'm just doing it longer and then I can draw on the final length when I try it on her. That's it. So let's see here. Okay. It might look a bit too long, but I'm gonna leave it like that because I have some seam allowance on both sides, so I think it'll be fine at the end. So what I'm gonna do now, I am going to cut another one of these. I'm gonna sew that on, top stitch it, and then we'll come back and look at the outer layer. So here's the fabric I am going to use for the outer layer. Here is the finished lining, the Cottage. It's a very stiff fabric, so I'm curious to see how this will actually fit her, just because of that. In terms of the shape, I think it looks nice, and I think that will fit her well. The one thing I'm not sure about, and I'll have to just double check that, is the fit in the front. Maybe it is a bit big. If so, I will take it in just a few millimeters at the front, I think. But this is done, so I'll start cutting the pieces from this fabric. I have finished the outer shell and the lining, so what I'm going to do now is to sew these right sides together, like so. This will be really detailed work, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste around the whole thing, and hopefully I'll be able to turn it out afterwards. I'm really not sure if I'll be able to, but we'll see, and hopefully it'll look fantastic, so fingers crossed. I have realized I have to do this over. I struggled so hard to turn this out, and I think the main issue is the straps are joined together, and the seam right here is almost impossible to get turned out. So I have unraveled a lot of seams, I have loosened threads and so on, so this will not look nice no matter what I do. I'm also not sure if I will actually turn it out or if I will just sew them wrong sides together and then do something to the outer edge instead. The thing is, no matter how much I clip this edge, it will still be a bit too thick and lumpy. This is not an issue if this was a bigger garment, but when it's this small, it doesn't look very nice. So I am going to redo the panels, sew them together again, and I will see you guys when we have the outer and inner layers ready
and sewn together. So be right back. So finally I am done with the two pieces again. So here we have the lining and the outer shell. So what I think I'll do, I will just baste them together or sew them together, wrong sides together like this. I'm going to press the opening edges, just to fold them in and press them before sewing them together. Hopefully this will work. At the moment, all the seam allowance is there that I would have used in order to turn it out. So I am going to just sew along the seam line, cut away a good bulk of the seam allowance before I put on this bias binding. Probably I'll have to hand sew the bias binding in place, I think, around both edges. So now I'm going to press the fronts, sew around, and then baste this in place. So I'm just doing a tiny slip stitch or ladder stitch along the front. Okay, so now I have just sewn around the edges here. I'm going to trim them down quite a bit. I'm not going to turn them out like I mentioned before. I'm going to try to instead bind them off using bias binding, really thin bias binding. But first, take off a bit on the seam allowance. Okay, so now it's time to try it on. Okay, this looks promising. Oh, I like it. I like it. I think the fit looks really nice. It could still have been shorter, the straps, but I don't think it's a problem because I'm not entirely sure how to close them yet. So what I'm gonna do now is try to put on the bias binding. I will do this by hand. I'll start off by sewing it to the right side and then turning it in. This is a small strip of bias tape that I just cut off a wider strip of bias tape. The thing I like about the store-bought one though is it's somewhat stiffer. I sort of just feel like it will hold up better, you know? So I'm just sewing along the crease here, and then I'll fold it over afterwards. So now I'm going to try to fold it over and slip stitch it to the other. This is really fiddly stuff, so it will be really hard to see. I'm going to try first off to secure the ending here. I do this fold like an accordion. I would normally do like this and then sew across it and turn it in. I'm going to try to do it by hand stitching and we'll see. So I'm not sure how durable this will be, but it looks okay and it looks nice on the outside, so it doesn't look great just on the corner. But except for that, I think this will work out nicely. I finally finished the lower edge. On the outside it looks really nice, I think. It's a bit more messy on the inside, but oh well. I think that looks really nice. I like that edge. Sorry, Cindy.
This was really fickly, but the worst part is the edges where it stops on each side. And it is because I sewed the ending too tight to the edge. There isn't enough room in there to fit the edge that I've tucked in. I still have not decided about how exactly I will do the lace up in front. I do want it to be able to lace properly and not just make it look like it's laced. I might just use an awl. I can do that and sort of do a small stitch around each little hole. So I have done the first seam on the top bias binding. I have also tried to bind it off at the end here. It is so teeny tiny you can hardly see, but I have done a sort of seam over here on both sides. So I've just been experimenting a bit with eyelets and hand-sewn eyelets. These are for a different project that I'm working on, but I've made an eyelet here, just pushing through an awl and sewing embroidery seam around. So I think that could work. So I think I'm gonna try to do that. It's super scary though to punch holes in it, but maybe 5 on each side. 2, 3, 4, maybe 4. Maybe 4 is enough.